Welcome. Today we're diving into something pretty unsettling that's happening to all of us right now, right behind our screens. We're going to map out the exact ways modern technology has bypassed our conscious minds to completely hack our innate biology. We'll be looking at the hard science of what's reshaping human behavior, fracturing our attention, and fundamentally altering our emotional well-being.
Just think about that for a second. We all know that subconscious pull, right? That phantom vibration in your pocket, that automatic reflex to just grab your phone the second you feel a moment of stillness. But what is actually happening to the human brain when our primal need for connection literally becomes a heavily engineered, fully weaponized drug?
Section 1. The illusion of connection. Human traits versus tech. To really understand this, we kind of have to start by looking at the jarring collision between our ancient biology and our modern reality. See, for millions of years, human beings lived in a world of absolute scarcity and ever-present danger. We are biologically wired to connect because moving in tribes, that's what kept us alive. It safeguarded us against predators and helped us share scarce resources. But modern social media apps have completely warped this survival instinct. They take this beautiful, necessary human trait and just drop it into a digital environment of overwhelming abundance. Your brain thinks it's surviving by connecting, but the algorithms are really just mimicking the signals of a tribe, turning a genuine human need into a drugged artificial loop.
And the currency of that artificial loop is this: dopamine. Now, it's often misunderstood as just a happiness chemical, but it's so much darker than that in this context. Dopamine is actually the main chemical involved in addiction. Nature designed it to be secreted in your brain's reward pathways to incentivize behaviors that increase your odds of survival, like finding food or finding a mate. So when you're looking at your screen, your brain isn't just feeling happy, it's releasing the exact chemical responsible for keeping addicts hooked on heroin or alcohol.
Section 2. The digital hypodermic needle. Predatory architecture.
And this brilliantly illustrates how platforms actually exploit this biological chemical with predatory mechanics. Stanford psychiatrist Dr. Anna Lemke puts it perfectly. She says, the smartphone is the modern-day hypodermic needle, delivering digital dopamine for a wired generation. A physical needle delivers a drug directly into the vascular system to make it instantly potent. Your smartphone does the exact same thing, but to your visual cortex.
Bright colors, flashing lights, engaging alerts, these are stimuli engineered to be incredibly tough to resist. But the absolutely terrifying part isn't just the delivery system, it's the supply. The quantity is bottomless. TikTok never runs out. Instagram never runs out. It's an inescapable, infinite scroll that feeds your visual cortex an endless stream of digital dopamine. There is literally no natural stopping cue.
So this builds into a three-step biological hack. First, the platforms amplify the feel-good properties of human attraction. Second, that artificial amplification causes the release of massive dopamine doses all at once. And third, they deploy advanced AI algorithms. See, your brain has a natural search and explore function that absolutely loves novelty. The AI literally learns what you like and then spoon feeds you a twisted, perfectly optimized version of connection. It's constantly suggesting new things that are similar, but just different enough to trigger a fresh dopamine hit.
Section 3. Hacking the attention economy. Hacking focus.
But you have to ask, why are these systems designed to hack our biology so aggressively? Well, because this biological hacking isn't an accident. It's driven by massive economic incentives to manipulate your focus. Research from the Stanford Institute for Economic Policy Research highlights how firms actually compete for your attention. They do this through deliberate architecture. They induce information overload. They use obfuscation, hiding reality behind filters and algorithms, and they rely on product complexification. They are actively competing to overwhelm you, bounding your literacy of what's actually happening, and keeping you locked inside their system because, at the end of the day, your attention is their primary product.
And the human mind simply wasn't built to withstand this. Our brains literally short-circuit under the weight of this algorithmic complexification. When our limited, evolutionary attention is pushed past its breaking point by infinite feeds, we experience severe mental fragmentation. We lose the ability to focus, to sit in silence, or to process information deeply.
Section 4. The comparison matrix. Emotional fallout.
Okay, let's dive into this, because the fallout from this mental fragmentation isn't just cognitive, it's deeply emotional. We've all felt that ambient, lingering exhaustion of constantly looking at highly curated, idealized digital feeds. The human brain is completely unequipped to process millions of social comparisons. Evolution prepared you to compare yourself to a small tribe of maybe 50 or 100 people. It absolutely did not prepare you to measure up against millions of perfect people who don't actually exist in reality, but only exist in the virtual matrix of social media.
And neuroscientists actually have a term for what happens next: learned helplessness. When you're constantly bombarded with these flawless, curated lives, you eventually become entirely overwhelmed by your total inability to measure up. So your brain essentially gives up trying. This constant comparison culture completely drains us, sinking people into a state of depression because the game is rigged to make you feel like you're always falling short.
Section 5. The paradox of loneliness. Agonizing isolation.
So, the crucial point is, this leads us to the darkest psychological twist of all. We are technically more connected than any human beings in the history of the planet, and yet, we are profoundly isolated. A major study funded by the U.S. National Institutes of Health looked at young adults and social media use. They found that those in the highest quartile of use have an incredible 3.4 times the odds of experiencing high-perceived social isolation compared to those who use it the least. There is a hauntingly direct linear relationship here. To put that into perspective, if you have low use, under 9 visits a week, your odds are right at the baseline, 1x. Move up to medium use between 9 and 30 visits, and your odds of feeling isolated jump to 1.8 times. But if you're in the high use category, visiting these platforms more than 58 times a week, your odds of feeling deeply, painfully alone skyrocket to 3.4 times. More scrolling literally equals more loneliness.
And this study explains exactly why this happens. They note that exposure to highly idealized representations of peers' lives elicits feelings of envy and the distorted belief that others are leading happier lives. We aren't just substituting real relationships for fake ones. We are actually training our brains to feel alienated from the rest of humanity. We're surrounded by digital avatars, feeling entirely left out of the human experience.
Section 6. The dopamine deficit. Biological crash. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is what happens when we try to stop. Let's plunge into the sobering physiological reality of what occurs in your brain the exact moment you try to put the phone down. The biological mechanism of logging off is horrific. First, you get the exposure, those unnatural massive dopamine spikes. Second, the brain adapts. To balance out that unnatural high, your brain actually decreases its dopamine transmission. But it doesn't just go back to normal. It drops it way below your natural baseline. This plunges you into step 3, a chronic deficit state. This is exactly why when you turn off the screen, you suddenly feel incredibly anxious, empty, and physically unable to experience normal pleasure.
And that deficit state creates a silent fallout that stacks up over the years. It displaces your sleep, it decreases physical activity, mainly because it's fundamentally a sedentary addiction. It breeds chronic anxiety. And as researchers from Harvard point out, the use of social media brings these small, ephemeral negative effects that silently accumulate over time. Every hour traded for an infinite scroll is an hour stolen from the foundational pillars of physical and mental well-being. And fixing this isn't as simple as taking a deep breath and going for a walk. According to Dr. Lemke's research, it takes an entire month of fasting from your digital drug of choice to merely reset the brain's baseline reward pathways. This isn't cheerful self-help advice. This is a stark clinical biological requirement. You literally have to starve the addiction for 30 full days just to recover the neurological ability to feel modest, normal joy in your everyday life again. Which leaves us with a deeply unsettling reality. As we sit alone in our rooms, emotionally exhausted, navigating a dopamine deficit state while staring into the flashing lights of an endless feed, are we actually still the consumers of this technology? Or have we, in our desperate biological need for connection, simply become the observed subjects of a massive algorithmic manipulation? Definitely something to think about the next time you feel that phantom vibration in your pocket.